So what's up? Hey everybody, what's happening? It's Keeping It Real Fishing here. I've got three things that I'd like to show you. Well, three variations of what you already are expecting to see, these 13 fishing rods. So check it out, guys. 13 Fishing is coming out with the new, let's see if we can get our focus here. That's the new Muse Black series of Swimbait rods. I've been fishing these now for a few weeks. As of the making of this video, these are not on the market yet. I was fortunate to be able to kind of win some contests, and so I have three of the different models. I have two of the 8-foots. One's an extra heavy, which is this guy right here, and this is the heavy. And then the last one I have is the 7'9". See there, I'm throwing a little bit of a smaller bait. That's the 7'9". They also call it a heavy. It's just rated for not quite as large of a lure. So like I said, guys, fishing these for a few weeks. I just like to go over some of the basics of these rods with you here. And I'm going to go into more detail in a little bit of a different setting. I only have a couple hours to fish. I'd really like to capitalize. But let me show you what these rods are all about. Let's do some close-ups here, right? Hopefully we can keep our focus. First things, actually, before we even take a look at it, one thing you're going to notice for an 8-foot rod, they're really, really lightweight, particularly as a large swimbait rod goes. I have some others here right next to me. I have an LDC, which is a low-down customs. I also have a few of the Akuma rods, the previous generation, the Guide Select series. They're great rods. I love them. They do the job. But the first thing I noticed when I got this was that it was significantly lighter. The other thing, and we'll talk more about this, I'm going to fill you in a little bit more on the water, is the action. These are claimed to be fast action rods, meaning that most of the play, most of the bend is going to be happening about that first third of the rod, and that is definitely the case. Just something that you guys want to keep in mind, because a lot of the swimbait rods out there are purposefully a moderate fast action. They're made to load up more throughout the blank and be a little bit more forgiving. I consider these to be, let me grab my other one here. I've been fishing this guy a lot here. This is about a 2-ounce lure. I consider these rods to be like flingers. It's a different kind of cast. It doesn't bow over so much. It's kind of like you pop it. Not very much fatigue at all. You can really launch these things a mile. Doesn't take a lot out of you, but I just want to be crystal clear on that, because I know, you know, the hardest thing is buying a rod that you haven't felt and you haven't fished. And so as someone here who has it, understand these are true fast action rods, and decide if that's something that you want. I've found fishing a lot of places with cover, whether it's timber or grass particularly, or lily pads, I love that fast action. It gives me a lot of hook setting power in those areas and to be able to winch them out. In open water, particularly on large treble hook lures, not so much. There I prefer more of a moderate action. So guys, let's take the one that's not rigged up yet. Let me just give you a close look. The handle is relatively short, and I'll have to throw in some pictures or video comparing it to my others, but of all the swimbait rods I have, this is far and away my shortest handle. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of that. I'd rather have an extra large handle and maybe not use all of it. I know some people like having a shorter handle for imparting action to the lure, but the deal with swimbait fishing, almost always you'll hear about guys tucking the rod. And so you grab your reel, let's grab one with a, this is fine. You grab your reel and you kind of put it underneath your armpit, and you have it there, and then when that fish strikes, it's like, it's there, it's already planted, you lay into them. These, as you can see, you can put it underneath there, it's no problem, but I don't use mine so high. I kind of keep mine a little bit lower, and at that point it's kind of like even, you can see there with my elbow. I prefer one that comes out a little bit farther. Again, it's neither good nor bad, it's just the design characteristics that they decided to go with. Let's talk about this EVA right here. This is a excellent EVA. You know, there's all different grades of EVA out there, is what I found. Different stiffnesses, softness to the touch, resiliencies, and this one here is probably the best feeling EVA or handle on a rod that I've ever felt. It feels so cool in hand. You can see they're getting a little, let's make sure we're in focus here. You can see it's wide here, tapers in very thin here, and then actually bows out in this portion. This right here doesn't concern me so much, or this, but here, this is where you're actually going to get some meat on it, some purchase with your hand. And even though it's a little bit bigger than most of the straight grips, I actually like this. Again, just my opinion, but I didn't think I would. I didn't think I would want something larger in hand, but it actually feels, at least to my hand, very good. You see right there we have an Evolve reel seat. You know, we often hear about Fuji, but Evolve is a company that I see being implemented on a lot of rods. What's cool about this is that it's very tactile. It feels rubbery. It's almost like, you know, some of those pens, it's like not, it has that rubber coating on it. Not that you could push it in, but it just has that nice tactile rubber coating. It's exactly what this is. Underneath there you can see it's a blank through design, so you're directly in contact with the rod right there. Looking up to the screw down reel seat, you have knurled aluminum right here with some EVA on top, and this whole assembly, as you can see, moves. All right, so that's very nice. There's no exposed threads. Those of you guys who like to choke up on it a little bit more, there's nothing uncomfortable to kind of dig into your fingers. From there we got a little bit of a gap. They come into this very distinct visual kind of carbon wrap there. That's pretty sweet looking. And then we have a foregrip. This doesn't move or anything, just a foregrip if you're really getting maybe some extra leverage on a huge fish. Here we go into the Nomenclature. You have your 13 fishing there, Muse black, and I really like their labeling system. If you see there, it's very clean and distinct, and it's everything you need to know. It's just nice the way that they have all the stats on the rod right there. You'll notice that this one here is the 8 to 14. I haven't put in too much time with this. I've been using my other two, and I found those to be accurately rated. Those of you guys who have been throwing some swim baits, you'll know that many manufacturers, Dobbins, they overrate their rods. They're not the only ones. A lot of manufacturers do it, and you really can't go anywhere near the top end. What I had heard was that these were accurately rated, and guess what? They are. The 2 to 4, that is where it wants to live, in that 2 to 4 range. The 4 to 8, which is the one that I have here, probably going to be one of the most popular models for throwing things like the 8-inch Huddleston. The 4 to 8 is on the money. I don't have any 8-ounce lures, so maybe I can't say that completely truthfully, but it feels utterly comfortable with the 4-ounce Huddleston. That's at the lower end of the range. The largest thing that I have is a depth slide swimmer coming in at 6.5 ounces, and that does not feel like it's testing this in any way, shape, or form. So that was one of the main things I heard, is that these are accurately rated, and I believe that to be the case. If we look at the guides, let's take a quick look at those. Hopefully we can get some focus. The guides are all 3 feet. So you see you have the 1, 2, and then the one in front. Triple foot. Makes for a stronger guide. Adds a little bit of weight depending on the material, but it's a very strong guide, and they're triple footed all the way up the rod. Even if we look all the way up to the top here, the very last one before the tip is a triple foot guide. These here are, I believe these are alkanite guides. And that's just, you know, there's different types of the ceramics out there and the level of hardness. I've never blown out a guide in my life using braid or anything else. I know a lot of people talk about the material used. I hear these names, like I'm sure a lot of you do. Maybe if you're a rod builder, or maybe if you've blown one out, but I just don't get too caught up in that. But I believe that these use alkanite, which is just the hardened insert inside of the guide. And that's pretty much it, guys, for the fit and finish of the rod. One other thing, like I was saying before, it's such a light rod, and one thing I noticed is that the diameter here of the blank, and pretty much all the way through, is thicker. This whole rod is thicker like this than all my others. And I think what they're doing, I'm not about to cut one in half, but I think they're going for a very thin wall. So there's not a lot in terms of the actual the layering of the graphite, but it's actually a larger rod. I've seen this on traditional rods as well, non-swim bait rods, is that you can make some stupid lightweight rods when you just don't wrap as much, but you make the rod itself, say, wider as opposed to thinner. So I think that's what's going on here. Again, just fishing them for a few weeks, no problems. I haven't expected any problems in terms of the durability, but we'll see how that plays out going forward. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm going to get onto the water here, give you some more reports as to you know, how it fishes and loads up and all that other stuff. And you may notice right there, I got the new, this is the 300 series, the new one from 13 Fishing as well, made for obviously this series of rods. This is their swim bait reel, very much in the vein of the current Concept A series. It's pretty much a clone, just everything about it is larger. Of course, the gearing inside is different, but if you look at it, you know, you've seen this before. So if you like those existing Concept A series, you're going to like this one a lot. Has more capacity, has more drag, you know, all the things that you would expect in the reel that's geared for swim bait fishing. So that's pretty much it, guys, and yeah, let's take these to the water, give you a few more thoughts and some close-ups. And here we come to one of 13 Fishing's very unique features, which inside of the foregrip here is what's called the foxhole hook keeper. And it's appropriately named. We have a little hole right here that's cut out into the foregrip, and this is where you can stick your the hook of your lure. Now you might be asking why do that? What's the point of having it here as opposed to a traditional one? The idea here is, guys, there's a zero chance of your line ever wrapping or getting nicked or getting caught up on a line guide that is forward of the reel. And you know, you never want that to happen in any kind of fishing, tournament fishing or otherwise, but I think it's almost synonymous with the philosophy of swimbait fishing. Is your bites sometimes could be so few and far between, and you're looking for these exceptionally large fish that there's no chance, zero chance. It's like an insurance policy that your line can ever get hung up and ever get nicked. So they've moved it inside here, this foxhole hook keeper, and I think that's a good design. Alright guys, so here we are out on the water with the Muse Black, and I'm running my 8-inch Huddleston Rate of Fall 5 on this right now. Let me just button him up for a minute. And let me just talk to you about what I think are the most important things that I want you to know if you're interested in these rods. The main thing that, that you need to come away with is that these are true fast action rods. And for those of you guys out there who are a little bit new, maybe you're looking to get your first swim bait set up, you're not too familiar with tapers, here's just the Tapers 101. Slower action rods, moderate action rods, they flex more through the blank. They just have more overall flex, they're more of a cushion. A fast action rod, more of the blank is backbone. It's stiff and it doesn't flex as much. And the flex that you do have is coming in the top quarter to the third of the rod. And when you have rods like with traditional bass fishing rods, you have some what you even see are extra fast action, and those, very little of the rod is flexing, most of it is stiff, and then just the tip would be flexing. So what's interesting about the 13 Fishing series is that they've elected to make a swimbait rod in a true fast action, which is interesting because when you look online, if you look at Tackle Warehouse and many other sites, a lot of manufacturers claim their rods to be fast. But like I said earlier, there's no governing body that they have to send these things to and get approval. Every manufacturer has their own take on what they think fast is and what they think moderate fast is, etc., etc. This one right here, I think by anybody's standards, they would call a true fast action rod. I feel the difference immediately. Sorry, I have to keep correcting because this canoe is spinning. I feel the difference immediately when I cast out these lures in that it's more of kind of like a flinger. It just has a different energy, and I actually have to release my my hand off the spool a little bit different than with my other rods that are moderate actions, and one of my rods is even a slow action. Now, the thing here, guys, is that there's no right or wrong. A lot of times, that's probably one of the most common questions that I get is which is better? There is no better. There's just different. These are the characteristics of the rod. In casting, that's the way that it stores and releases the energy. Whether it stores, you know, whether it's a fast action rod and it kind of has that flicking feel to it, or if it's a slower action rod and it has more of that kind of catapulting feel. It's a little hard to describe. I know those aren't the best adjectives, but if you have a few rods, you probably know what I'm talking about. You can get, or at least I get, very similar distance on them, but the way that they impart that energy when casting the lure, and also, more critically, when we're setting the hook and fighting a fish, is very, very different. The flex points and how the energy is distributed. This here, again, is a fast action rod, which is just something a little bit different than we see in most of the swimbait world, where most rods, even the ones that say they're fast, tend to be a little bit more moderate fast. What does that translate to in real world performance? Well, nothing to be afraid of here. I found that I get excellent distance on this rod as compared to my other rods. My other rods, just for reference, guys, I typically use a I have it right down here. It's a 7'6" Akuma Guide Series. That's a true swim bait rod. It's actually the previous generation. I have an LDC, which is a low-down customs. I have an 8-foot model from them, which is an extra heavy. That's a slow taper, actually. And then I have some lighter ones, some 7'6" models that are like medium heavy powers. But in terms of distance, comparing this to my Akuma, they're spot on. Spot on. One does not really cast any farther than the other, and if it does, I can't perceive it with my eyes. But just the manner in which they cast the lure out is different. Now, I'm not too happy about this, but I've had a very slow fall, so I'm sure a lot of you would say, well, how is it in terms of loading up on a good fish and fighting a fish? And here, guys, I'm going to draw a blank, and unless I get one today or in the next week or two, our lakes here are going to be iced over, and I wanted to get this review out, but I haven't gotten any fish on this yet. This has been my Huddleston setup, and the Huddleston is something that I throw a lot this time of year, but I've got a couple strikes, and I just haven't connected with those fish yet. So I got the big skunko on the on this rod so far, so I can't tell you what it's like in terms of fighting the fish. But you know, I wouldn't think too hard about that. I know, like any other fast action rod, I just have to be a little bit more careful. It's going to be a little bit less forgiving, but it's going to be more powerful, right? Again, there's no right or wrong, or one is not necessarily better. This rod is going to give me backbone to really horse those fish out with a lot of authority. However, it's not going to have as much flex or as much cushion as some of my more moderate action rods. I'll just mention though, guys, I would ask you to think about your system as a whole when you're purchasing a rod, and also the line that you're using. So for instance, with this rod, I knew it was a fast action rod once I started fishing it, and I chose to spool up the new Concept A3 here with monofilament, which is something that I don't run on my other rods. I like to run braid to short leaders, to copolymer leaders. But here, I'm running mono. And the reason being is because I have that fast action rod, because there's not as much cushion, but I know I have kind of more horsing them out power, I still want some stretch in my system. These are big 4, 5, 6 ounce lures that I'm going to be tossing, and I'm gunning for really, really big fish. And so the idea is to, you know, try to keep that lure pinned, these very heavy lures pinned in that fish's mouth. And so I'm getting my flex in the system through my monofilament. Most monofilaments can stretch up to 25% of the length that you have out, so there's a lot of cushion in this line. And I purposely would not run this line on my softer rods. To me, that would be a soft overall system. But here, with the stout fast action rod, I want that little bit softer line. That's just my preference, guys. You know, it's not the only way to do it, but that's just the combination that I like, being that this is a fast action rod. What else can we talk about here, guys? The handle length. I alluded at the tabletop that it was a short handle. It is. It's a lot shorter than my other rods, but in practice, I'm not finding that it really is changing anything for me. I thought I wouldn't be able to get the distance. I really feel like I want to come like out to here to hoist it, but the reality is, guys, I'll just throw one out here, and you're not going to be able to see by that angle, but in terms of distance, I mean, I could really... Boom. I mean, it just hoists them out there so well. I was actually speaking to the product manager at 13 Fishing, and that was the one concern I had, nothing else. I said, you know, what's up with this short rod? And the team of people that developed these rods, the consensus was that a lot of people like the long handles, but the physics of it, and in practice, it's not really aiding you that much out on the water. It's something that people like, but when it comes down to it, it's not changing your performance out there so much. That was their take. That was 13 Fishing's response. And at first, I said, you know, I'm not going to like this. I'm not going to like this shorter handle. But it's one of those things, guys, is, you know, don't judge a book by its cover. You need to get out there and try it out. And I know, being that you can't and you're looking to this review for some more information, I would tell you that even if you have rods that have those longer handles, it'll feel funny because you're used to them. The transition will feel strange. But if you just look at the dynamics of your casting, and then even, you know, fighting the fish, being able to, you know, tuck this under your arm, you still have plenty of length there. I don't think the shorter handle is really an issue. For some people, I'm sure they're going to want long handle all the way, but the shorter handle for me has not been an issue. So guys, that's it. This is really a first look. Like I said, only fishing it for a few weeks. And the downside here is I haven't had the opportunity to get any fish on this rod. And that's really, you know, there's dynamics there in and of itself. How does it load up? How does it feel when you're fighting a fish, trying to get them away from cover and all that stuff? So I haven't had a chance to do that. Lady Luck has not been on my side. But those are some early thoughts, first impressions, guys, on the new Muse Black series of rods from 13 Fishing. Thanks for watching the video, guys, and if you have any questions and if I can help you at all on these rods, please leave something down below in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks for watching.